Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne. Has social media been slowly changing your art without you noticing? I can tell you that, at least for me, social media tempts me to change what and how I draw, and in my experience, the only way to prevent this is to be aware of it. While I'm talking about all of this, I'm going to be drawing a couple different art trends, starting with this action figure or starter pack trend that was originally an AI trend, but that I'm obviously drawing myself. So one of the first ways that social media might be changing your art is what I'm calling Unalived Syndrome. People change the way that they talk and what they make because things that aren't advertiser friendly are often dinged on social media platforms. This causes a lot of people to start compulsively self-censoring, basically installing a subconscious haze code on themselves that's kind of hard to turn off even when you're just drawing in your sketchbook later. This, I think, is bad. Art is amazing for expressing yourself, and yourself is not always advertiser friendly. When I was coming up in the art world, for example, people used to post some pretty crazy stuff. Art communities were full of angsty teens drawing the most messed up things they could possibly think of, because being a teenager is really stressful and scary, and making weird, dark, advertiser-unfriendly art was cathartic for a lot of artists. Not to mention, learning anatomy is going to require a level of comfort around drawing the naked body, and advertiser-friendly social media guidelines do not bother to litigate the difference between nudity for art and nudity for adult content. Of course, with the internet becoming more and more algorithmic, there needs to be some kind of guardrail to avoid serving kid-unfriendly content to kids all the time, but even in platforms that aren't really supposed to be for children, they're having their edges sanded off for the comfort of corporations, which is really bad. So you might be thinking this doesn't affect you because you don't worry overly about that, you're not monetized anywhere online, you're not afraid to say murdered instead of unalived or something like that. But even if this isn't something that you generally worry yourself with, if you feel like this doesn't affect your art, there's a possibility that it still is a little bit, just because when the algorithm favors certain content, that also means it's ignoring the content that falls outside those guidelines, and that means that when you're on social media, you're more likely to be shown advertiser-friendly content, pretty much no matter where you are on any of the major platforms. And we naturally, we internalize and get inspiration from what we see. So it actually is really hard to fight against this, even if you personally aren't overly worried about getting shadow banned or whatever. If you are someone who's trying to get more reach on your art, this effect is even stronger. And this is something that I know a lot about because obviously I've been posting my art online for 15 years now, and I have really been here for a lot of different phases of the social media situation, sort of changing what's allowed, what's not allowed. There was a whole era where on YouTube you had to be really careful not to make your content too childlike because then you would get put on YouTube Kids. It's a lot of editing yourself and changing yourself in order to try not to get caught by all of these automated systems. And I do think that if you're not conscious of it, you might end up making art that doesn't really align with what you really feel or believe or what excites you most. So what are the solutions if you think this is affecting your art? Here's a couple things that have really helped me. The first one is very basic, but I strongly recommend it. You should have a sketchbook that you know you will never post or show to anyone. And I think it'll be interesting if this is not something you're used to doing. If you're used to showing people your art all the time, it's gonna feel weird working on something that is only for your own eyes, but over time, as you kind of exercise this, you may start to notice that you're interested in different things than you thought you were. When you're really just drawing for yourself and you don't have to worry about being cringy or being appropriate or even being in line with your normal style, you might find that you are kind of going in different directions that you would have if you thought you were going to post it on Instagram later. You also don't have to worry about who's going to like or not like it. This is something that gives you a lot of freedom if you're really tied up in posting all the time. And I think it's really, really good for artists to do this. I also think that another thing that can really help you is making sure that you aren't only absorbing media on the internet. art. So whether that means going to the library and just like randomly walking into the stacks and picking out a book that interests you without looking up the ratings, without looking up if it's popular, or going to a video rental store if you're lucky enough to live near one of those still, just curating your own content based on your own whims without checking to see what people on Letterboxd think or Goodreads think. Like, just make sure you're going out into the world and genuinely following your own interests without anybody else's feedback. Like, your life is not a project that needs a committee all the time. You don't need permission to take an interest in something, and it doesn't have to be popular. I think especially as artists, it's really critical that we are valuing our own authentic experience and our own feelings, because when we are constantly being bombarded with other people's comments and feelings on things and their reviews on Goodreads and their reviews on Letterboxd or whatever, and that's like constantly in the back of our mind when we're watching movies or reading books and experiencing everything, it's really hard to even find our own voice and really find our own opinions on things. But that point of view is critical if you want to make your own art that feels like yours, like truly your own. So next I'm going to be Ghiblifying myself, of course, with my own hands and not with an AI. And I'll be putting my new cat, Snowball, in there. Enjoy the pictures of Snowball. She is so cute and so clingy. Speaking of the algorithm, the biggest difference between the internet I experienced when I was a kid and the internet now is the prevalence of algorithms. When I was young and I went on the internet, I had to intentionally seek out what I wanted to see. When I went on YouTube, for example, I would look up a viral video by name or type in an interest of mine like AMVs or cosplay. Because of this, when I would change my interests, I would change up my internet diet, so to speak, quite rapidly. Now though, there are platforms like TikTok where you basically just get on the app and wait for it to show you what you're gonna watch, and the only way you can control it yourself is by liking or swiping away. This can cause you to get sort of trapped in a cycle of the same sort of content, and stuff that you like in the moment but maybe isn't something you seek out consciously kind of dominates what you're watching. Algorithms on social media usually work with a snowballing effect, where content that is doing well gets preferential treatment, whereas niche stuff gets buried. And while that can surface high quality stuff for everyone to enjoy, it does mean that what we see is getting more and more similar. And this is a problem in the art world. One of the things that makes our art styles and subjects unique is our unique taste. If we're constantly being encouraged to watch stuff just because it's popular with lots of other people, it's going to make our media diets more and more similar, which can make our themes, ideas, and even our art styles more similar as well. The best way to avoid this is to make sure that you're also spending some of your media consumption time consciously seeking out things and not always letting the algorithm pick for you. So whether you take the advice I mentioned earlier about like going to the library or like brick and mortar places where you have to make your own decisions, or even if you are on the internet, making sure that you are searching up what you want to look at and not just sort of like letting the app control what you're seeing. I like going down sort of like Wikipedia rabbit holes, for example, like just researching stuff sometimes and then going to those sources and like reading the sources. This is a good way to kind of more consciously be going on the internet and learning something and really like digging in deep on something. That's another thing I think is kind of worrisome about the way that the internet has changed. Because of the super short content and the content rapidly changing, like on TikTok or, shorts or reels, you'll be watching like a slime video and then it'll go to like a pretty intense like news video, like sometimes of really bad stuff happening, and then suddenly you're to somebody's recipe, and then you're hearing about some drama of some kind of influencer or celebrity you've never heard of before, and all of that stuff happening like rapid fire to your brain, I feel like is not as good for your creativity. Unfortunately, and I know this is not good news, I am someone who loves being entertained. I love having like music and video games and like videos going on in the background all the time, but if you really want to come up with original ideas and have like a burst of creativity and motivation, you might have to be bored for a little while. I think there's a reason why a lot of us get interesting ideas when we're like in the shower or on the bus. It's because you gave your brain a little break where it could kind of spend some energy coming up with something new or trying to entertain you itself. Whereas if you are being entertained by other people's creativity all the time, it doesn't leave a lot of space in your mind to be working on something new. I thought it'd be appropriate to talk about this over this particular trend because I do think that the Ghiblification of all these memes and stuff, other than like the AI stuff, which you guys already know how I feel about that, it's interesting because I feel like Miyazaki movies in particular, they have these moments of quiet and a lot of slowness. Like, I honestly think a lot of the people who have Ghiblified their selfies and stuff couldn't actually sit through Whisper of the Heart without checking their phone. The internet, especially right now, is very much ruled by these ideas of like speed and efficiency and instant gratification. And unfortunately, when you're being a creative and trying to make art, you really need to go against that as much as you possibly can. You need to embrace like long observation and slowness and a little bit of boredom, because that's really the only way you're going to be able to improve your craft and also say something that's authentic to yourself. When you're distracted all the time, it's hard to even know how you really feel. You might just be reflecting the feelings of everyone around you. Next up, I'm going to be drawing the mind horse. This is an art trend where you have to draw a horse with no reference because they're famously impossible to draw. So let's give this a shot. So the last way that I've seen social media kind of changing the art community and changing people's art in general is actually the relationship of social media, art, and money. I do think that in general, there has been this kind of side hustleification of our social media spaces and our communities. Now, to be clear, I have been supporting myself on YouTube as well as with my comics and stuff for a long time at this point. I don't think it's bad that people can make money on the internet, but I have noticed that it's become way more common for basically everyone to try to make some money on the internet or treat their own personal social media pages like it's the QVC channel, especially on like TikTok, where it seems like everyone is trying to sell you something off of TikTok Shop for like a 15-cent commission. And I think that that's really sucking the soul out of a lot of communities where people previously were able to be more free and authentic. I think a lot of people feel pressured into trying to make their social media and their art pages into some kind of side hustle. And I think that it has long-reaching consequences that are really changing the way that we express ourselves online. Again, to be totally clear, I don't have any problem with people making money on the internet. That would be incredibly hypocritical of me. But I do think there has been a noticeable change where, you know, when I first started posting videos on YouTube, I didn't have any idea that I was ever going to be monetized. I didn't even like wish for that. I just wanted to make tutorials because I remembered that when I was learning to draw digitally, what I had to do was look at people's speed paints and slow it down as much as I possibly could, desperately trying to see through like the 240p resolution what they were doing. And I just wanted to make, you know, something that was like helpful. I had a genuine wish to make videos, and the monetization helped me keep doing that and do more of that and quit my job and, you know, support myself while I was at art school. But I think a lot of people now are posting and making art specifically with the idea that they'll be able to turn it into a job, and it really is changing the feeling of being online in these spaces. It's really altering the way that people are interacting with these things, I think, in a negative way. Let me know what you guys think about this topic. I know I covered a lot, and it is kind of a controversial topic because obviously social media has been really beneficial for a lot of artists, including myself. But these are some things that were really starting to bother me and worry me, and I thought it might be helpful to bring to your guys' attention too, in case this is something you're also struggling with. Thank you so much for watching till the end of the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much to my wonderful members and patrons, including Philip Verbicario, Celery Sticks, I'm a Potato, Prince Piplup III, Honey Kitten, Nee Nico, Novel Goblin, Loro, Dada, Lily McFarlane, Artist James, Skitten, Gold Pikachu, Clad, Songbird Galesworth, Sunshine, Whimsic, Asri Cryptid, Hoodle Doodle, River the Goblin, Raz Tarosh, Kobe Octo VTuber, Graveyard Moss, Grexius, Matty Momo, The Midwestern Menace, CB, Lucy Amajiki, Live Live, Raven's Crow, Zocelot, T-Hill Music, Jabber Dabber Doo, Light Jewel, Kadaria, The Expressive Poker Face, Tsubaki, Cutie Pie, Ice Cream Pal, Kola, JJ Jade, and of course, Blah 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 Blah.